Hi there, this is DM Nell, and I'm back with another super episode of my SOTDL talk. And this time I'm going to finish up the where I left off on the table of contents in the core rulebook of Shadow of the Demon Lord. And this time I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that you can read it better. I just realized when I was reviewing the last video that it was very small and you probably couldn't read it at all. All right, so just to kind of give you a view of what I covered last time, those are the chapters that I reviewed, and some more over here. There we go. Also, I was wrong in the wealth section that I reviewed. I said that there was only 5 levels of wealth, and there's actually 6 levels of wealth. It starts at destitute, and it ends at rich, and then there's 4 in between there. So I'll go more into detail on that when we review that section of the core rulebook. But for now, I just want to finish up the table of contents, and then we can go from there. All right, so we're on chapter 6, the equipment section, and it's what you would expect from an equipment section. It basically covers all the prices and the types of equipment that are available, which would be what you would expect in a fantasy game. So I'm not really going to go into a whole lot of detail there. The next section is the magic section, and this section is near and dear to my heart because I like playing spellcasters in RPGs when I get the rare opportunity to play. And so, I usually, whenever I get a new RPG, I usually pour over the magic section just to see how their magic rules work and the magic system, how it differs from what I'm used to with other RPGs. And this system is fairly similar to, say, a Dungeons and Dragons, although there are some differences that I want to highlight. And those differences are discussed in the Traditions of Magic and the Spells section of this chapter. Now, in this game, magic is divided into what's referred to as traditions. Other games might refer to them as schools or something similar, but in this game, they are traditions. And the traditions basically categorize the spells based on, the similar types of spells, what the spell deals with. So, for example, any spells that deal with the elemental air would fall under the air tradition. Any spells that deal with necromancy would fall under the necromancy tradition, and so on. So there are a bunch of traditions, as you can see here. You have the air tradition, alteration, arcana, battle, celestial, chaos, conjuration, curse, destruction, divination, earth, enchantment, fire, forbidden, my personal favorite, illusion, life, nature, necromancy, primal, protection, rune, shadow, song, storm, technomancy, teleportation, theurgy, time, transformation, and water. So each of those are traditions. Now, when you choose a class or when you choose a path that allows you to learn a tradition, then these would be what you would choose from. Now, some traditions utilize your intellect score, and some traditions utilize your wisdom score. So based on how you build your character, you would want to choose traditions that would better fit your character based on which score you have better score in. So if you have a higher intelligence or intellect, you would probably want to pick a tradition that is intellect based rather than one that's will based. So at any rate, those are the traditions. I'm not going to get into how you learn the traditions because that's part of the that's part of the character development, and it's kind of complicated. Not really, but it takes some explaining, and so I will wait until I actually review that to go into detail there. But I did want to explain what the traditions were. Now, learning spells, basically you learn spells whenever you gain a talent and the path that you choose that tells you that you learn a spell. So that's how you learn a spell. And then casting a spell, you would use an action to cast a spell. So that's basically how it works in other RPGs, and that's how it works pretty much in this one as well. Now, I think I also wanted to cover castings, casting a spell. And I'm going to touch on this briefly, but it deserves a longer explanation. So, casting a spell is um, unique in this game in that you have a number of castings per spell. So, like in D&D, you have spell slots, and you have just a flat number of spell slots, and you can use them to cast any of the spells that you have. Not so in Shadow of the Demon Lord. Each spell comes with a number of castings based on your power level, and your power is one of your attributes, which I'll get to when we cover that. But your power level determines how many castings you get per spell. So you can start off with say 2 rank 0 spells, and you would, let's say you get 2 castings per spell. So you would actually be able to cast each one of those spells twice before you have to take a long rest in order to regain those castings. So there's a bit of confusion on how that works sometimes when you're starting off Shadow of the Demon Lord. So it's worth your while to really read this section of the rulebook and understand how castings work, how you learn your spells, how you learn traditions, and all that stuff, because it can be a little bit confusing until it's explained to you, and then when you reread it, you're like, duh, that's exactly what it says. So I don't know why it's so difficult to get, but a lot of people do have trouble really comprehending the text. So anyway, that's how that works. And then the next, it finishes the magic section. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next chapter, which is A Land in Shadow. Now, A Land in Shadow covers the world that this game is set in. And again, there's tons of information in here. I don't have time to cover all of it right now, but I'm going to just give you a basic overview. And the basic overview is that you have a world, and the world is called Earth, although it's spelled with a UR instead of the way we normally spell it. So it's URTH, Earth. And this game is focused on one continent of this world, which is the continent is referred to as, or is called Rule, and that's RUL with a little thingy over the U. The continent itself is ruled predominantly by the Empire, and the Empire has been in existence for about 800 years, so it's fairly enduring empire. But the problem is that it's in its death throes. It's on its way out, and that's where the game starts with the assumption that the empire is starting to disintegrate, and things are starting to fall apart all over the empire slowly but surely. So that's touched upon in this section. But a lot of the section is basically just talks about the different parts of the continent and the different parts of the empire. So you have the lands of rule, which cover the different sections of geography and the different nations and the different lands that aren't part of the empire. And it also covers the northern section of the continent, which is physically divided or physically separated from the southern part by a mountain range. And it's technically still part of the empire, but it is kind of a frontier. And that section is referred to as the Northern Reach. I forgot to mention also that the continent is situated in the southern hemisphere of the world, not in the northern hemisphere like we're used to. So the further north you get, the hotter it gets, and the further south you get, the colder it gets. Okay, so back to the Northern Reach. The Northern Reach is kind of a suggested area where you might want to start your campaign, although you can pretty much start it anywhere. But it's really a good starting point because it's frontier. It's kind of separate from the empire, although technically part of it. It's kind of an area where you're free to do more without getting into a whole lot of imperial politics and stuff like that. So that's the Northern Reach, and this section deals with the Northern Reach's geography, history, and all that stuff. The different settlements and the type of people that live there. Northern Reach also has a history because it part of its ancient history is that the Fae, the Fae races, or the Fae ancestries, had a large presence in the Northern Reach, and a lot of their cities were situated there. But they, after the Troll Wars, basically took their cities and moved them into adjacent hidden, what they call hidden kingdoms. They basically put them just into a pocket dimension to remove them from the world of man, because the humanoids were kind of spreading and encroaching on their lands and making things a bit uncomfortable for the Fae. So anyway, that's the Northern Reach. It's a pretty cool place. It's where the first campaign is set, or the official campaign for the first official campaign for Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is Tales from the Demon Lord. Tales of the Demon Lord, I think, actually. That's where the campaign is set. All right, religion and belief. It talks about the different types of religion that is practiced in the campaign, or in the world, in this part of the world. And there are a few that are listed here: the Old Faith, the New God, witchcraft, the Fairy Queen, and small gods. Now, there's others that are covered in supplements, but these are like the main big ones that are practiced on the continent of Rule. The next section is the cosmology, which talks about how the various dimensions, the world itself. Talks a little bit about how death works and where souls go after death. They can either go to the underworld or to hell. It also talks about the void, which is the dimension outside of this universe, which is the dimension, or the dimens where the Demon Lord resides. And the Demon Lord is the probably the ultimate bad guy in this campaign. The Demon Lord is out to destroy everything, and he's like the Galactus of this campaign world, if you want to put it into comic book terms. Actually, he's worse than Galactus, but he is, or it is, an entity beyond power. There are no stats for the Demon Lord because it doesn't need stats. It is an entity beyond stats, and it resides in the void, which is the space outside of this universe. Okay, so that is that section, and then that ends that chapter. Chapter 9 talks about running the game, and it has a lot of information in it, a lot of basics in case you're new to GMing, on how to do that, how to run a horror game, how to inject elements of horror into the game I mentioned in the last video. Talks about how to run adventures, how to create adventures, how to do campaigns, exploration and travel. A little bit more information on combat, how to set difficulties, how to use a battlefield, more explanation of rounds, turns, and actions, improvised activities. Even though there's things listed in the combat section to show you how, what type of actions you can take, it doesn't cover everything. So there are some, your players will surprise you and say, hey, I want to swing on the chandelier while pulling a rabbit out of my ass or something like that. Then, improvised activities always occur in role-playing games, and this gives you some guidelines on how to handle those. And then ending combats and so forth. That ends that section, and then it goes into player characters, how to create characters, how to end characters' death, and secondary characters. In the event that your character dies early, it's good to have a secondary character to pull out so that you can start playing right away. Even if you don't do that, you can roll up or you can develop a character rather quickly. Even if you just do it randomly, you can probably have a workable character within 10 to 15 minutes of starting. All right, the next section is the Shadow of the Demon Lord I'm going to save this for another video because this is worthy of an entire video, probably more than one. But the assumption in this game is that the world is in its final days, an Armageddon, an end of days type scenario has either started or is getting ready to start or it's well underway. And those are referred to in this game as the shadow of the Demon Lord. So the Demon Lord's shadow has been cast, and it's it's falling upon this world. Not literally; it's more of a figurative thing. But the shadow of the Demon Lord is falling over this world, and that is causing everything to go to hell. Not literally hell, because there is a place called hell, but go to shit, and not literally shit. So anyway, I'll talk about that more in another video. The Game Master Toolbox covers a lot of stuff: corruption, deprivation, disease, exposure, fire, insanity, suffocation, traps. Lots of goodness there. Then we have the table continues on with the rewards that you can give. Level increases. As I mentioned in the last video, you don't level individually, you level as a group. Treasure that can be given out. Now, this game is not as heavily involved in giving magic items, or not heavily dependent upon giving magic items to your characters. In fact, in the last campaign that I just played in, my character got one what was referred to as an enchanted object in the entire campaign, which was a monocle that told me where True North was. So, it really wasn't even that useful. I didn't use it. I didn't use it at all. But I didn't need it because your character is designed to be self-sufficient. You really don't need magic items. It's cool to get them if you find them. They're always neat. It's always neat to diversify your character with enchanted objects, but it's not something that you need to expect or you need to hand out if you're running the game in order for the players to be able to keep up, or the characters to be able to keep up. And the final thing is relics. Relics are more powerful enchanted objects. They could have multiple properties to them, and they're maybe the best comparison would be to an artifact in Dungeons and Dragons. All right, the next section is the bestiary, and the bestiary covers all the monsters, and it's got a bunch of monsters which are listed there. I'm not going to read them all, but it's got your old favorites. It's got undead. Beastmen are a big part of this game. They're the servants of the Demon Lord. You've got things like the dire wolf. You got demons, of course. You've got dryads. You got giants. You got goblins. You've got gremlins. You got hags. And you have things that are unique to this game, like the Leshy and the Lash Crawler. They're kind of weird stuff. The Oculus is definitely weird. So lots and lots of monsters to choose from, and then supplements give you even more monsters. And then we're wrapping up the book with some NPCs that they stat out for you, and how to customize creatures and NPCs. And it also gives you a table of creatures by difficulty. The index is fairly useful, and then it has a copy of the character sheet. Alrighty, so that's pretty much the table of contents and all that I wanted to cover on these two videos. Might as well just cover the next little section here real quick. The forward is worth giving a read here because it is written by Frank Menser, who is one of the founding fathers of this game, and he is when he gives praise to this game, that holds a lot of weight, and he definitely gives praise to this game. So read through that. It's a good read. And then you have the preface, which is Robert Schwab's, basically his preface to the book, why he wrote it, what he wanted to accomplish out of it, and some background on him. And you got his picture here with him dead center there, and then you got some of his play testers. So that will wrap up, I believe, everything that I wanted to cover in this book. Yeah, the next section is the introduction, which I'm not going to get into just quite yet. Okay, so that covers everything that I wanted to talk about in this book, and that will wrap up this episode of SOTDL Talk. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me, and I will pump out another one of these here pretty soon, and we will talk about a different topic related to the game, and we'll see how that goes. So once again, thanks for listening to me drone on, and hail.